Today, we're going to talk about how to create emotions in conversation with a woman. Why? Because sometimes when you talk to a girl, you kind of feel the conversation go stale. You kind of feel like a drop in the vibe. And before you know it, if you let some time pass with that drop in the vibe kind of like being there, the girl's going to give you the, it was nice to meet you. I have to go back to my friends. I'm short in time. I have to leave. I'm sorry. It was nice to meet you. Goodbye. And there's not going to be a lot that you can do there other than like just accepting your fate. And that kind of sucks because this feels very disappointing, and this can feel frustrating, and it's not a good place to be. And it's not your fault, but at the same time, it is your responsibility to create emotions in the conversation with a girl. It's not her responsibility. So from her perspective, what it's going to feel like is, oh, that guy is just another fucking boring guy. I don't have time for this. I really don't want to be here. I'm having a terrible time. I need to leave. From your perspective, it's going to be like, I really want to make this happen. I want to create that connection. I want to move this forward, but like, it's so hard. And today I'm going to give you a couple of tangible, specifically 3 tangible ways to pull out your hat if you feel that vibe just shifting, so that you can create these emotions, keep the conversation going, and eventually get the digits, create the connection, create the relationship, and get your personal 10 out of 10, which is what we do in this channel. This is what I teach. So if you want to work with me one-on-one, link in the description below. So without further ado, like I said, it's your responsibility to create the emotions. You need to acknowledge when the emotions are not there, and you need to admit it first and foremost to yourself. And here's the 3 ways. Okay. So the first thing we do is we say, okay, cool. Like, we realize this is not going anywhere. And we know this because first and foremost, we are the ones feeling bored. So the first thing I want you to do is a physical change. Okay. One way to do that is this. Here's an example. This happened to me, and I was at a date, and I talked to this girl on the street. I was riding my bike, see this girl across the street. I'm like, she's cute. Talked to her, got her digits, and a couple of days later, we were out for a drink. Now, we're sitting on this couch, and the conversation kind of boring. And there's like a coffee table in front of us, and there's a couple of chairs on the other side of the table. I'm like, okay, I'm bored. I need to do something else. So I get up from the couch where I was seated next to her, which is something that I recommend, by the way, if you're on a date, to sit next to each other as opposed to opposite each other. So I get up, I go across the table, and I sit on the chair and like kind of like gaze outside, because this is where the window was. Next thing you know, the vibe completely shifts. She feels the loss as well. She feels the takeaway, and she gets up and joins me in the chair next to mine. So that alone, just that physical change alone, that like I gave up trying to like make it happen, and I just did something different. That alone changed the vibe. And you can do that by getting up, going somewhere else, or simply standing up. Even if you're like seated and it's cool, you can just do that. Trust me, do it. Or you can get up and go sit on the other side of her, or get her up and sit her like right next to you, which is a little more dominant. And all of this has the elements of leadership as well, which I made a video about. You can see it right here. Okay, leadership is a great attribute to have as a man, because it feels, and this is kind of like a tangent, but I want to say this, it feels to her like she can trust you, and if she can trust you, she can let go. Okay, all of these things, very important. Video up here, like I said. Go check it out after this video. Now, the next physical change you can make is change the venue itself. Acknowledge that you're bored. Acknowledge that this is like, I feel like a vibe change. And by the way, if you say that you're bored and just put it out there and just state that, don't do that, because it brings up to the surface an awkward fact, and now there's an awkward air, or there's an awkward like energy in the air. We don't want that. We want to be responsible for it. We want to be in charge. We want to, if I'm bored, I'm acknowledging it to myself, and I'm like, okay, guess where we're going next. And then I switch up the venue. We do that because the venue itself carries an energy in and of itself. So if we change the venue, we're going to change the energy. So if it's a date, you can do that. If you just met the girl there, you can simply move her somewhere other, like somewhere like in a different area of the venue itself. So if you're at the dance floor, you can go to the bar. If you're at a lounge, you can go to a different couch or to like check out the view or something. If you're on the street in the daytime, you can move her like a couple of steps, like here, let's go here, you know, here, come with me for a second. It's a great way to also move to an instant date. Like you can lead the girl in that way as well. And start walking towards the next juice bar because all of a sudden you needed to get a juice, brother. So let's do that. Okay. Physical change of the venue. And sometimes it's even enough to like just turn her around like 90 degrees. Okay. She'll look at a different view. You'll look at a different view. You'll change your emotional state. You're leading the situation. And that means whatever you feel, she feels. By the way, this is a little bit of a fallacy that we had back in the day in our community. It's called the law of state transference. It states that whatever you feel, she feels. But the add-on that I would like to add here is that you need to be leading for this to happen. So all of this physical change, I think that we've exhausted the topic. You know how to do it now. So every time you feel a conversation goes stale, every time you feel there's no emotion in conversation, do that, bro. It's going to work. Okay. Now, the next thing is a conversational change. So what you can do is you can simply change the topic. And to do that, I want you to interrupt her. Don't be afraid to interrupt. In seduction, and what we're learning here and getting your personal 10 out of 10, there is always the element of interruption. And if you think about it, interrupting somebody can be rude. Okay, it's not the best. If you're going about your day and you're walking and some dude comes to like stop you from your agenda and introduce his own thoughts on agenda, this is always considered, like this intrusion is considered as rude. There is an exception to that rule. And every time I've found myself honoring that exception, I have never to this day been considered as rude. And here's what it is. When you get in, when you do the interruption, the energy that you carry has to be very positive and your momentum has to be greater than the person's momentum who you're interrupting. So if somebody interrupts you, but they're carrying an amazing enthusiastic energy and they're carrying momentum, it will not ever cross your mind to deem them as rude. This will never happen. Cool. So interrupt her and change the topic of conversation to the topic that you're more excited for. That's how it's gonna work. Pretty easy. Now, here I want to also give you a little strategy or a little hack that comes straight from hypnosis. And it's called the principle of fractionation. Here's how this works. Now, in this video, I'm giving you like tons and tons of stuff. But again, this is like stuff that I work with every day, so you can have it. Fractionation works like this. If you're taking a subject to a trance, to like through induction and into intervention and into like into a trance basically, and you take them back up for a second and then you take them back down, hypnotizing them. The second time that they go down, they're gonna be so much calmer and so much more like deeper down. That means that every time that, so to you basically, that means that you can simply alternate topics between a serious topic and a lighthearted topic. And you will see that every time you go back and forth, the second and third time, the girl is gonna be more and more focused in what you have to say. So you can use that principle of hypnosis to make the girl more calm and more focused in what you have to say. And of course, when she's focused and you carry good emotions, she's gonna feel that too. Okay. And the last thing I want to say about a conversational change, always, topics that interest you, bring topics that interest you to the table. The last thing I want to say is that you can use the principle of push and pull. You can pepper in like good things about her and bad things about her to keep it interesting. So when you do that, the girl's gonna be challenged, and if she's challenged, that's something that most guys don't do, because most guys are kind of scared to stir the waters. So if you do that like a little push and pull, if you tell her, you're cute, but I don't know about your energy, or you're cute, but like we wouldn't get along, then she has the opportunity to ask why, like what's going on here. There's a little bit of a challenge. She's gonna be happy to win you over. Okay. So now, with all that said, let's move on to physical touch. Physical touch is the last thing I want to touch on. The last way to create emotion in her, because if we're touched by somebody, that absolutely fucking creates emotion, okay? And you can do that in two ways. You can do that by having plausible deniability if your relationship has not really been established yet, or you can do that by overtly touching her. So the former is very simple. Plausible deniability are things like touching her hand to kind of like inspect her rings or read her palm. Those are like really good excuses to use. Or you can touch her ear to see her earrings and check out her piercings and brush her hair behind her ear. All of this, good for plausible deniability. Girls fucking love that if you do it right. And another thing that you can do is tell her a secret or ask her something in private. And while you're doing it, you can let your nose or your lips brush up against her ear. And that's incredibly seductive. That's for a little later, okay? Girls tend to appreciate that. And if you don't need plausible deniability, what you can do is simply overtly hold her hand or grab her by the small of her waist. That can be also included in plausible deniability. Maybe you're helping her go through a door, like through a threshold or something. You can place your hand on the small of her back and guide her through it. Firmly, not pushing, but like just being very steady. Also, very appreciated gesture. Now, the overt gestures, like I said, you can hold her hand. You can draw her in closer by placing like your hand on the small of her back again and drawing her in. Or you can put your arm around her. All these moves, fucking great to create emotion. So don't be afraid to go for them, even if you feel that the vibe's not there yet. If you're right, here's how to calibrate back. Very easy. She appears uncomfortable with the advance you just made. Cool. You acknowledge it in your head. You understand you got a red light. Make a physical step back. Change the conversation. Change the energy. And then try again later. And that's kind of it. So, try these moves. If you made it to the end of the video, subscribe to the channel and like the video. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.